Have you ever felt like English just won't stick? You study for hours, but the next day, gone. You listen to native speakers and it sounds like noise. You try to speak, but your brain freezes. Your mouth refuses to move. You've spent months, maybe years, trying to sound fluent. And still, you feel like a beginner. Every word feels like a test. Every sentence feels like a mountain. And deep inside, you start to wonder, maybe English just isn't for me. But what if I told you, it's not your fault? What if you've been learning English the wrong way your whole life? You see, textbooks make you memorize words you'll never use. Flashcards promise results, but give you confusion. Grammar drills turn your passion into frustration. You keep repeating rules, but you never feel natural. You start to hate learning, even though your dream is to speak freely. And the worst part? You feel embarrassed every time someone asks you to speak. You stay quiet in class. You cancel conversations. You stop believing in yourself. But there's one truth nobody told you. Your brain doesn't learn from rules. It learns from stories, from emotion, from real human experience. That's why, today, we're not just teaching English. We're unlocking it through one of the most powerful, emotional, and inspiring real-life journeys ever told. This is the story of Jeff Yass, a man who turned logic, risk, and failure into $1 billion success. A man who started small, failed big, but learned smarter. His secret didn't come from textbooks. It came from life, from observation, decision-making, and the courage to think differently. And his story will not only inspire you, it will transform the way you learn English. In the next few minutes, you'll hear narration that's slow, clear, and emotional, designed for you. You'll learn vocabulary that people actually use, the kind that lives in real conversations, not in boring textbooks. And you'll feel something powerful. Every sentence, every story, every pause will stick, because your heart will remember what your brain forgets. So imagine this. You walk into a coffee shop and you order with confidence. No fear, no hesitation. You talk to a stranger and they understand you. You watch a movie in English and suddenly you understand every word. You smile because you finally realize this is working. That's the moment we're building right now. For you. Because once you understand the story of Jeff Yass, you'll see how thinking differently can change your life, your future, and even the way you speak. So if you're tired of feeling stuck, if you're done repeating the same boring lessons that don't work, then stop scrolling, sit back, and open your mind. This is not a lecture. It's not another English class. This is your turning point. Smash that like button right now if you're ready to take control. Subscribe to the Control English, because your fluency, your confidence, and your transformation start right here. Now, let's begin. The untold journey of Jeff Yass, the man who bet on his mind and won. Lesson 1. Hook start. The invisible billionaire. Imagine this. You walk down a busy street in Philadelphia. People rush by, phones in their hands, eyes on their goals, chasing something they can't name. But among them, somewhere in a quiet office, sits a man who moves billions of dollars without noise, without fame, without the spotlight. His name? Jeff Yass, the billionaire you've probably never heard of, yet one whose decisions ripple through the world. Now, before we dive deep, let me ask you, do you ever feel invisible? Like you have ideas, dreams, maybe even brilliance inside you, but the world doesn't see it yet? That's how Jeff once felt. A math-loving boy from a middle-class Jewish family in Queens, New York, with no fame, no power, and no clear path ahead. He wasn't born into luxury. He built everything from logic, patience, and a strange belief that life, like poker or the stock market, is about understanding probabilities. But here's the catch. Jeff Yass didn't just play with numbers. He played with life's odds and won. And that's exactly what you're going to learn in this documentary. How a quiet, analytical thinker transformed himself into one of America's wealthiest men. And how his story can transform your English, your thinking, and your life. Stay till the end. Because the lesson buried inside his story is not just about money. It's about how to think differently, how to trust your own logic, and how to learn English the same way Jeff learned success, through risk, repetition, and reward. You're watching the Control English, Vault documentary series, and this one is personal. Lesson 2. The Boy Who Loved Numbers. Long before Wall Street knew his name, Jeff was a quiet kid sitting at the back of his math class, solving puzzles faster than anyone else, but never raising his hand. He wasn't the loudest, he wasn't the most popular, but he was curious. Every number was a mystery to him. Every equation felt like a riddle the world had hidden. When his classmates played sports after school, Jeff spent hours playing poker, not for fun, but to learn how probability works. He realized something powerful. The world runs on patterns. Every decision, every risk, every outcome. It's all numbers. You just have to see them. Now pause here for a second. When you learn English, doesn't it sometimes feel like poker too? You try a new word. Sometimes you win, people understand. Sometimes you lose, you freeze, embarrassed. But here's Jeff's rule. Every failure teaches you what the odds really are. You don't stop playing. You learn from each mistake. That's how he became fluent, not in English, but in understanding how the world works. Lesson 3. College and the Spark of Strategy. Jeff went to SUNY Binghamton, where he studied mathematics and economics. But here's what made him different. While everyone else memorized formulas, he questioned why things worked. He started analyzing the world like a game, where outcomes are not random, but patterns waiting to be discovered. During his college years, he joined poker tournaments, not to gamble, but to observe human behavior. He saw how people made emotional decisions when they should have made logical ones. And that right there became the seed of his billion-dollar philosophy. English learners, listen carefully. That's the mindset you need. Don't memorize grammar like a robot. Question it. Why do Americans say, "I've been waiting," instead of, "I am waiting"? Because it expresses emotion and time, not just action. If you think like Jeff, logically but emotionally aware, English becomes your winning game. Lesson 4. A bet that changed everything. After college, Jeff Yass and his friends loved one thing: horse racing. Not for the thrill, but for the math. They'd spend hours studying data, past wins, conditions, probabilities. Until one day, Jeff realized something shocking. If you calculate the odds better than the bookmaker, you can win consistently. He started betting not with luck, but with logic. His team's strategy started working. They began winning, small at first, then big. But Jeff didn't stop there. He asked himself, if probabilities work on horses, why not on markets? And that's where everything changed. He took the same principle, analyzing odds, and applied it to Wall Street. Imagine that moment. A young man from Queens with no family connections, no financial empire, just a calculator, a notebook, and a brain wired for patterns. That's all he had. But that was enough. Lesson 5. The birth of Susquehanna. In 1987, Jeff co-founded a small trading company with a few friends, Susquehanna International Group. It began in a rented office, no luxury, no fame, just pure math and belief. Their idea was radical. Use poker logic and probability theory to make better financial trades. Wall Street laughed. Poker? That's not investing, they said. But soon, Jeff's team started doing what others couldn't, predicting market behavior through probability. And guess what? They started winning again. Not by chance, by calculated understanding. That's what English learning is too. When you stop memorizing and start understanding patterns, your growth becomes unstoppable. Lesson 6. Thinking in bets. Here's a question Jeff often asked his team. How sure are you? Not 100%, not 0%. Every decision, he said, should come with a probability. 60%, 70%, 80% confidence. Because certainty kills learning. Think about this when you speak English. You might say, I think I am right, or maybe this is correct. That's okay. You're learning through probabilities. Every sentence you speak builds your linguistic intuition. Jeff's company became legendary because they thought like mathematicians, acted like philosophers, and learned like students. Lesson 7. The language of risk. Every great thinker speaks two languages: the language of words and the language of risk. Jeff Yass mastered both. He knew that every decision carries a percentage, a probability that it might fail or succeed. While others feared losing, Jeff spoke fluently in the grammar of uncertainty. He used to say, risk is not danger. Risk is data. Pause on that for a second. When you learn English, every mistake you make is not a failure. It's data. It tells you what's missing, what needs more practice, what can be improved. That's how Jeff lived. He didn't avoid risk, he measured it. When Susquehanna was still small, Jeff took big, calculated steps. He trained his team to think like mathematicians, but act like teachers, always testing, reviewing, and correcting. Just like language learners, they repeated patterns until understanding became natural. The result? A company culture built on curiosity, not fear. And that culture, over time, became their biggest strength. Lesson 8. Building a tribe of thinkers. Jeff didn't want employees. He wanted thinkers. People who could debate, challenge, and question him. In the early years, when he built Susquehanna, every new member had to learn poker, yes, poker, before learning finance. Why? Because poker teaches psychology, emotion, and patience. It teaches how to read patterns, not people's words. Jeff believed that understanding emotion was just as important as understanding numbers. For English learners, that's a golden rule. Fluency is not only about vocabulary, it's about emotion, tone, pause, and timing. Just like poker players read signals, fluent speakers read feelings. Jeff's office didn't look like a trading floor. It looked like a classroom. Whiteboards everywhere, arguments about probability, laughter about mistakes. That's how learning feels when it's alive, not memorized. Lesson 9. The power of the invisible game. The world saw Jeff Yass as a trader, but he didn't see himself that way. He saw himself as a player in an invisible game, not of money, but of ideas. Every market move was like a chess game, every decision a question. What does the world not yet understand? He built his empire quietly, avoiding the spotlight, staying invisible but powerful. His strength came from invisibility, from watching before acting. That's the same for English learners. The ones who listen more, observe more, improve faster. Jeff's secret wasn't luck, it was awareness. When you listen to native speakers, don't rush to speak. Watch their rhythm, their energy. English is not only spoken, it's felt. Lesson 10. When logic meets intuition. At Susquehanna, logic ruled everything, but not alone. Jeff trained his traders to mix logic with intuition. He used to tell them, if logic is your map, intuition is your compass. Think about that in your language journey. Grammar rules are your map, but your intuition helps you feel what sounds right. Sometimes you don't remember the rule, but you know it sounds correct. That's intuition. Jeff believed the human brain could learn patterns faster when emotion is involved. That's why his teams didn't just calculate, they visualized. They used stories, examples, and emotional connections to understand complex patterns. So when you study English, don't just memorize words. Connect them, imagine them, feel their story. That's how intuition grows. Lesson 11. The art of staying calm. One of Jeff's strongest traits was calmness. Markets crashed, traders panicked. But Jeff stayed still, watching like a silent observer. He once said, "You can't control chaos. You can only control your reaction." The English learners, this lesson is for you. When you forget a word, when someone speaks too fast, don't panic. Breathe, observe, control your reaction. Fluency doesn't mean speed, it means clarity under pressure. Jeff's calmness wasn't emotionless, it was powerful focus. He trained himself to stay rational, even when fear screamed inside him. That's what makes thinkers different. They respond, not react. And if you can apply that to your learning, every hard test, every failure, your growth will multiply. Lesson 12. The moment of doubt. Every great story has a storm. For Jeff, it came when one of his early investment models failed, hard. The loss was massive. His confidence was tested. Some partners wanted to quit. But Jeff didn't run. He reviewed every mistake line by line. He treated the loss as a teacher, not a punishment. That's when his famous belief was born. Losing is tuition. You pay to learn. That's exactly what language learners forget. Every wrong sentence, every awkward pause. That's your tuition fee. You're paying it to fluency. Jeff's comeback after that loss was legendary. He refined his methods, improved his team, and made his system stronger. Every mistake became a seed for innovation. Lesson 13. Building systems, not dreams. Jeff Yass believes dreams are good, but systems are better. You can dream of success forever, but without a repeatable system, nothing happens. In Susquehanna, every success had a formula, a system built on data, not emotion. If something worked, they studied why. Then they repeated it with discipline. English learners, here's your mirror. If one study habit helps you remember new words better, make it a system. Repeat it daily. Discipline always beats motivation. Jeff once said, "Luck helps you once. Systems help you always." That's how billionaires think. And that's how fluent speakers learn. Lesson 14. The unseen empire. While most billionaires chase fame, Jeff avoided cameras. He didn't want interviews, luxury photos, or viral headlines. His wealth grew quietly through precision and consistency. He focused on compound learning. Every day, one new insight, one new improvement. Over years, that small effort turned into a massive empire. That's the real secret: compound growth. Learn one new English word today, 2 tomorrow. Time multiply your effort. Jeff Yass proved that silence, when combined with strategy, can be louder than fame. Lesson 15. Thinking long-term. While others thought about next week's market, Jeff thought about the next decade. He built everything for the long run. Patience was his strategy. English learners often give up after weeks. Jeff would have told you, "You're just starting. Don't stop when it's hard." That's where the curve turns upward. He understood that mastery comes slowly. Poker, trading, language, all follow the same law. The more consistent you are, the more natural it feels. So if you're watching this now and you've been learning for months or years, don't measure speed. Measure direction. You're already ahead of where you began. Lesson 16. The power of thinking differently. Jeff Yass was never impressed by the crowd. He didn't believe what most people believed, and that made him powerful. When others said, "It can't be done," Jeff asked, "But what if it can?" That single question separated him from the world. He once told his team, "If everyone agrees with you, you're probably not thinking hard enough." That line should live in every learner's heart. When people tell you English is too hard, that your accent isn't good, or that you'll never sound fluent, remember Jeff's rule. If everyone says it's impossible, that's exactly why you should try. Jeff didn't seek to fit in. He sought to understand. And that's what made him stand out. So, if you've ever felt different, or slower, or uncertain, congratulations. You're already thinking differently. That's the beginning of mastery. Lesson 17. Seeing the world as numbers and stories. For Jeff, numbers were not cold. They told stories about people, choices, emotions, and mistakes. Every graph was a conversation between logic and life. He used to say, "Numbers never lie, but people often misread them." Now think about English. Words are your numbers. Sentences are your equations. If you can learn to see meaning behind the structure, you'll never forget what you learn. When you hear, "I was going to call you," it's not just grammar. It's a story in time. Something was planned, but didn't happen. Every English phrase has an emotional story behind it. That's how Jeff approached finance, and that's how you can approach language. Find the meaning, and you'll never lose the memory. Lesson 18. The quiet teacher. Jeff never liked being called a billionaire. He preferred being called a teacher. In Susquehanna, he trained new traders himself, not with lectures, but with questions. He'd ask, "Why did you make that decision?" and wait silently for an answer. He believed thinking deeply was more important than answering quickly. That's how language learning works too. When you don't know a word, pause. Think. Connect. Don't rush to fill silence. Silence is part of learning. Jeff's teaching style shaped thousands of thinkers. His greatest gift wasn't money. It was mental independence. Lesson 19. When money becomes meaningless. At some point, Jeff had more money than he could ever spend. But that didn't make him happier. What drove him was the game of thinking, the puzzle of possibilities. He once said, "The purpose of wealth is not more comfort. It's more curiosity." That's the same spirit that fuels great learners. Don't study English only to pass exams. Learn because every new word expands your world. Every sentence gives you a voice you didn't have yesterday. For Jeff, curiosity was wealth. For you, learning is power. Lesson 20, the fallacy of perfection. Jeff often told his team, if you wait for the perfect decision, you'll never make one. In markets, as in life, waiting for perfection means missing opportunity. That's true for English, too. If you wait until your grammar is perfect, you'll never speak. If you wait until you feel ready, you'll never begin. Jeff believed in learning through doing. His philosophy was act, analyze, adjust. Every English sentence you say is an experiment. Some will sound awkward, some will sound amazing, but everyone is progress. Don't chase perfection, chase improvement. Lesson 21, the philosophy of probability. For Jeff, probability was more than math. It was a life philosophy. He said, the world is uncertain. The best you can do is to play the odds intelligently. That's the key to learning, too. You'll never know every word. You'll never understand every accent. But you can improve your odds by listening daily, reading widely, and practicing fearlessly. The secret is not certainty. It's consistency. Lesson 22. Turning fear into focus. In one rare conversation, Jeff admitted that fear never truly disappears, not in poker, not in trading, not in life. What matters is how you use it. He learned to turn fear into focus. When fear whispered, "You might lose," he answered, "Then I'll learn." That mindset can change your English journey forever. When fear says, "You'll make mistakes," say, "Good." That's how I'll grow. Jeff didn't fight fear. He befriended it. And that gave him clarity when others froze. Lesson 23. Building bridges through education. Beyond finance, Jeff began investing in something even greater: education. He believed freedom begins with learning, not wealth. He supported schools, scholarships, and programs that encourage thinking independently. He once said, "If you teach a person how to think, you give them a lifetime of freedom." That's what you're doing now. Learning English isn't just learning a language. It's learning how to think globally, how to connect, create, and contribute. Jeff saw education as humanity's best investment. And you, right now, are part of that return. Lesson 24. Mistakes that make you smarter. Jeff's team once made an expensive trading error. Instead of anger, he called it a billion-dollar classroom. He told them, "Now we'll never make that mistake again." That attitude is gold. Imagine if you could see your language mistakes the same way, as classrooms, not failures. Every time you use the wrong tense or pronunciation, you've just paid a small fee for a valuable lesson. It's not shame, it's training. That's why Jeff succeeded where others gave up. He didn't fear mistakes, he collected them. Lesson 25. The compound effect of thought. Jeff's greatest discovery wasn't a trading secret. It was how small improvements multiply over time. He called it the compound effect of thought. He said, "Every smart decision adds a fraction to your future. Keep adding fractions. They turn into a fortune." You can do the same with words. Learn one new English word a day. That's 365 a year. Add 10 phrases a week. That's 500 phrases. Small efforts, daily. That's compound growth. Jeff Yass built billions from it. You can build brilliance. Lesson 26. The power of quiet influence. As Jeff Yass's wealth multiplied, something surprising happened. He didn't chase the spotlight. He didn't want fame, interviews, or magazine covers. Instead, he built power the quiet way. Through ideas, mentorship, and investments that shaped how other people thought. In a world full of noise, Jeff learned that silence often speaks louder. He understood that influence isn't about showing off. It's about shaping the future in ways others don't yet understand. His focus was never to be known, it was to be effective. And that's what made him truly powerful. He believed real leadership wasn't about being loud, but about being right. He often said, "Markets reward truth, not noise." And in life, too, he lived by that. When young entrepreneurs came to him, seeking advice, he didn't hand them a formula. He asked them questions that made them think. He taught them how to reason, how to calculate risk, and how to build ideas that could survive storms. Jeff Yass wasn't building followers. He was building thinkers. Lesson 27. Betting on the next generation. Behind every bold success, there's always a purpose that goes beyond money. For Jeff, that purpose was education. He believed deeply that the ability to think critically, to weigh probabilities, make decisions, and learn from mistakes should be taught early. That belief shaped his philanthropic mission. He began supporting charter schools, scholarship programs, and education reform efforts. Not to create elite privilege, but to give kids from all backgrounds the same tools that built his life: math, logic, and reasoning. He once said, "Education isn't about memorizing facts, it's about learning how to think." In rural towns, in struggling districts, and in small classrooms across America, his funding created quiet revolutions. Students who once felt invisible began learning the same powerful concepts used in the world's biggest financial institutions. Jeff's vision was simple but radical. If more kids learned how to calculate risk and reward, in money, in life, in choices, they'd be unstoppable. Lesson 28. The Billionaire Philosopher. By the time Jeff Yass became one of the richest men in America, something fascinating happened. He began sounding more like a philosopher than a trader. He spoke about freedom, probability, uncertainty, and how understanding chaos could help people live better lives. He wasn't obsessed with luxury or power. He was obsessed with the puzzle of human decision-making. He viewed life like a massive, unpredictable market, where every action has a price and every emotion is a trade. His poker and trading days had taught him this universal truth: you can't control the cards, but you can control your decisions. For English learners watching this, that message means something bigger. You can't control where you started, how strong your accent is, or how fast others learn. But you can control your effort, your persistence, and your choice to keep learning. Jeff Yass's story isn't just about finance. It's about philosophy, resilience, and discipline in a chaotic world. Lesson 29. Risk and reward in real life. Jeff Yass's career was built on understanding risk, but his real genius was how he applied it outside finance. He used probability thinking to make everyday decisions. Whether it was investing in new technology, mentoring a startup, or supporting a cause, he always asked one question: what's the expected value? That question changes everything. It forces you to look beyond emotion and focus on logic. It teaches you that not every win is worth chasing, and not every loss is worth fearing. When you think like that, you stop making emotional decisions and start making strategic ones. For students and English learners, this same mindset applies. Every word you learn, every mistake you make, every video you watch, it's an investment. You may not see results today, but over time, the expected value compounds. Just like Jeff Yass built billions through small, calculated decisions, you can build fluency through small, consistent effort. Lesson 30. The hidden side of success. Most people see billionaires as lucky, but Jeff's story reveals the truth. Luck favors the prepared mind. He built a life around preparation. He didn't predict the future. He built systems that adapted to it. Whether the market rose or fell, Jeff's team was ready because they'd already modeled uncertainty into their plans. In real life, success works the same way. You don't need to predict what happens next. You just need to be ready for anything. That's what learning English is too. You might not know every word or every grammar rule, but if you stay adaptable, curious, and consistent, you'll always move forward. Jeff Yass's genius wasn't knowing everything. It was staying prepared for everything. Lesson 31. The art of long-term thinking. Jeff Yass's world revolves around probabilities that play out over years, sometimes decades. He believes that impatience destroys good decisions. In trading, in business, in life, the ones who win big are the ones who wait smart. He often said that short-term emotions are like market noise, distracting but meaningless. What matters is the long-term signal. For English learners, this principle is gold. Don't worry if you don't sound fluent today. Focus on your long-term signal, the consistent improvement, the vocabulary that sticks, the confidence that builds. Every day you study, you're compounding progress. Just like interest, it grows quietly, until one day, it explodes. Lesson 32. The freedom mindset. Despite his wealth, Jeff Yass never wanted to be controlled by money. For him, true wealth was freedom. The freedom to think independently, to say no to trends, to question popular opinions, and to live life on his own terms. He saw financial freedom as a byproduct of intellectual freedom. That's why he built Susquehanna not as a company that follows markets, but as one that creates them. He didn't fear risk, he feared complacency. And for you as a learner, that lesson matters. Don't fear mistakes. Fear standing still. Freedom comes when you master your skills, when you can speak, think, and express yourself without hesitation. English fluency isn't about perfection. It's about freedom. The freedom to share your voice with the world. Lesson 33. Building legacy, not ego. As he grew older, Jeff started focusing less on wealth and more on impact. He knew his money could disappear one day, but his ideas, the logic, the reasoning, the curiosity he shared, could last forever. He began mentoring young minds who didn't care about fame, but cared about truth. His offices became classrooms where probability met philosophy. The walls were covered with equations, but also with questions like, what's fair? And what's freedom worth? That's the legacy Jeff wanted. Not buildings, not brands, but minds that think clearly. Lesson 34. The power of learning by listening. Jeff Yass once said that one of the most underrated skills in life is listening. Not hearing, listening. He listened to the markets, to data, to his partners, to the quiet voices most people ignored. And that gave him an edge. For English learners, that lesson is a superpower. Don't just memorize, listen. Listen to accents, to tone, to rhythm. Listen not to reply, but to understand. That's how language becomes natural. That's how learning becomes life. Lesson 35. The ultimate bet. In the end, Jeff Yass's story isn't about money or markets. It's about the ultimate bet. The bet that thinking is the most powerful investment of all. He started with nothing but curiosity, courage, and a mind trained to question everything. And through that, he built one of the most successful trading firms in history. If you're watching this on the Control English, remember this. Your future depends on the bets you make today. You can bet on excuses, or you can bet on effort. You can bet on fear, or on faith. Jeff Yass bet on thinking differently. Now, it's your turn. Bet on yourself. Bet on your learning. Bet on your future. And if this story inspired you, like this video, subscribe to the Control English, and start your journey today. Because fluency isn't luck. Success isn't luck. It's probability. And your odds just changed.